Paul, you're currently halfway through rehearsals. How's that all going?
Splendidly. It's going very well.
Do you enjoy rehearsing after all this time, or is it just a means to an end?
I just like playing music, really, so it is a means to an end, but I also actually enjoy it as well. It's just nice getting together with the band, and we've had a sort of 6 weeks break or whatever it's been, so it's kind of nice to go back to school and, you know,
see the old
get back in the
faces again.
playground with your mates and all that, you know.
I know you've had a busy summer doing various gigs here and also abroad. Have you been happy with the overall reaction to them?
Fantastic, I thought, and I thought the band was probably at its peak again. I think it was, you know, I mean, it kind of goes dips and flows and all that, but it was, I thought the band's really firing at the moment, and I thought there's great reaction. And it was interesting with those gigs because it was kind of almost like 4 different generations of people there. I mean, it was, you know, it wasn't all sort of like hardcore Weller fans. It was all sorts of people. And I suppose because they're all out of the way places, you know, it was kind of a local gig for local people.
4 generations of fans. I mean, how?
Well, I don't say they were all fans, but it's just, but there was, you know, there was like sort of families there, and it was just kind of, it was like a day out. I think that's what it was, you know. And I thought it wasn't really rock and roll, but it was much nicer in a way.
Yeah. And what about playing live as well? I mean, you know, you normally don't leave it more than a couple of months before, you know, before doing something. I mean, what is it about sort of, you know, playing live after all this time that, you know, still gives you, what is it, the tax man, is it? Him working in the corner.
Well, I mean, that's my kind of forte, really, playing live. You know, that's the thing I think I'm best at, if I may say so, and the thing I most enjoy doing as well. You know, I mean, I like making records up to a point, but it can be pretty tedious just being stuck in the studio. But live is so immediate, and the reaction you get is so instant. You know, and I just think there's something really special about that. And it's just one of those things when you're playing live, you kind of, it's just that moment. You know, it's gone after that. But it's that moment that's what makes it really special. I think you either have that bit of magic on the night or you don't, you know. But when you do have it, it's just the best, I think, you know.
Are there any other sort of elements that can contribute to, you know, making a gig special?
I don't think there is. I think it's just, you know, it really is kind of in the air, and it's just luck of the draw sometimes. It's how you feel, how the crowd feels, the sound's right, and so many different combinations of things. But I think there is something magical about it, and I think that's why you just can't plan for it, you know. You can look forward to something, and it can be a complete disaster, or vice versa, you know.
And what about, you know, choosing the set list as well? You know, you've got a bunch of shows, you know, coming up. I mean, how do you sort of, you know, go about putting together a set list? I mean, I'm sure, you know, everybody who comes along, you know, has their own sort of particular favourites. But, you know, what's your sort of criteria for, you know, putting the set list together? I mean, obviously, you know, if you've got a new record out, you're going to have to do some stuff from that.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, because it all depends, really. I mean, around the time of an album release, and it's kind of obviously the set's kind of based around the new stuff, which it will be kind of, well, I mean, kind of half and half for this next up-and-coming shows. It'll be, we play a lot of stuff from the new album, and then there'll be the kind of oldies and, you know, usual, really.
I mean, I know that as far as the oldies are concerned, you're doing Towers from the Riverbank, you know, which is a song that, you know, you've kind of sort of constantly sort of like gone back to and done again and again. You know, why is that one, you know, for you, sort of like stood the test of time?
I think it's still, it's just one of my favourites, but it's also, it really kind of captures, I was able to capture what I wanted to write in that song, you know, and that's kind of quite rare, I think, really. And also for a song to kind of evoke a feeling, even after all these years, however long it's been, that song, 20 years or more. And even the subject matter I'm writing about is even longer. I mean, it's kind of about my childhood, growing up in Woking, or the sort of countryside, the rural sort of side of Woking, Surrey. But it kind of captures it for me, and it's sort of like, whenever I play that, it kind of brings me back to that moment again, you know, which is quite rare, I think. So it's kind of a special tune for me.
And I know you're doing a couple of old council tunes as well, My Ever-Changing Moods.
Right.
Again, what about that song? You know, why's that one sort of remained, you know, special?
Well, we haven't actually played it for a long time. We only started doing that this year, and I can't think why we did. Well, I suppose we haven't played it for a long time, and I just kind of forget. So that's another great song, I think. So we're also looking at maybe doing some other council tunes as well, you know. We were talking about doing Shout to the Top.
And a brass section playing.
And we've got a brass section as well,
round,
yeah. We've got a 3-piece at the moment. We're going to augment it to 4-piece in November. It's going to sound great, I think.
And Man of Great Promise is, you know, is always another sort of big favourite of mine. I mean, again, you know, what was it about that song that sort of, you know, made you want to kind of go back?
I just think, again, I mean, without blowing my own trumpet and all that, but I think it's just another great song.
Give it a good blow, go on.
Play my own bugle. But it's just a great, another great song. I think the melody's great and the words are great, you know. it's all about tunes, isn't it? It's all about songs, you know.
So back with a new album. Let's talk about that and the, you know, the sort of inspiration for this album, because a covers album is something that you've been kicking about idea-wise for a while now, haven't you?
Yeah, at least sort of 10, 12 years. I mean, 10 years ago, I'm sure I was talking about doing one. Well, it just seemed the right time, you know. It also enabled me to take a break from writing. I mean, I have been doing a little bit of writing, but it isn't particularly firing me up at the moment. I'm not particularly bothered about it at the moment. You know, it's not coming. I think also I'm probably old enough now to sort of see that these things come and go. You know, sometimes you don't write for a year or 6 months or 2 years, whatever. And then, you know, bang, all of a sudden they come pouring out.
Was there a
point? I've been there before as well, so I think kind of in hindsight I can sort of see, well, maybe it's just another one of those times, you know. I don't see it as writer's block, it just doesn't interest me at the moment. You know,
would there have been a point in the past when, you know, if they weren't coming thick and fast, that, you know, you might have been slightly freaked about
definitely,
it?
Oh, definitely, yeah, even up to a few years ago. But I think I kind of, you know, I said I'm old enough to sort of see, well, these things, you know, they do come and go, and they come back if they're meant to. So anyway, it enabled me to take a break from writing, which I fancy doing. And it was just good fun to do, you know. It was like, it wasn't a pressure, you know. It wasn't having to come up with 12, 14 songs. It was just kind of, we were just a band playing these tunes, and I was just a singer singing them. And it was, you know, it was a nice, welcome sort of change, you know. So
what was your criteria for choosing the songs in regards to this album? I mean, had you sort of some in mind already that you wanted to...
I had a few in mind, yeah. I mean, I think I had about sort of 3 or 4, which we started on last year, probably around this time, in fact. So we did about 4 tracks or so. And it was kind of, I suppose, like any album, once you've got sort of 4 or 5 tracks, you can also see where the other songs should be, what they should be, and where the album can go, you know. So it became a lot more involved than just recording our favourite tunes, you know. It's kind of afterwards like, oh, well, we've actually got to make a proper album here, you know. It isn't just like choosing 12 million favourites, which in fact they're not, you know. I mean, they're all good songs, but I can't say they're all my all-time favourite songs, you know. I
guess the selection might surprise, you know, some people, some of the songs on there.
I mean, I don't think people would be so soft to think I was going to do Kinks or Small Faces covers. I mean, that'd be totally pointless, wouldn't it? But I think hopefully it will surprise people. But I also sort of think it's sort of album where, even if you didn't know the originals and you're not comparing them back to the originals, you would just get off on the album anyway. You know, it could be the first time you heard these songs. And maybe it would help some people, you know, will start backtracking and, you know, find out the originals, and like we all do music, you know. But so yeah, so the criterion for choosing the songs was really just trying to choose good songs, and songs I thought we could interpret, you know, or make into our own, or add ourselves to them. I mean, when we've done covers in the past, they've been B-sides, and it's just that is more like us just playing our favourite tunes, or, you know, pub rock. But this was a bit more thought out, I'd say. But the songs were, at the same time, were kind of chosen, a lot of them were chosen at random. I'd hear something on the radio, like the Rolls Royce tune, you know, which I've heard, it's been around for a long time. But I've never really sat down and listened to it properly, you know. I just caught it on the radio one day and just thought, oh, that's a really pretty song when you listen to it.
Let's talk about the actual making of the album as well. I mean, you know, did you approach the making of this album in any sort of different way to perhaps before?
Well, I mean, we went away and done it. We recorded it in Amsterdam, which is, we've never really recorded outside this country before, apart from France years ago with the council. But
why was that important to get away?
I just wanted to go somewhere different, you know. But I didn't. At the same time, I didn't want to go to America to do it, or what people normally do. And I wanted to do it somewhere a bit close to home, but still have that feeling that you're away as well, you know. But just to see what else it could bring to the music, really. So I went to see a studio in Amsterdam and one in Brussels. So it was no contest, really. Spend 3 weeks in Brussels or 3 weeks in Amsterdam, you know. But you know, I don't know if it sort of made or break the album at all doing it over there, but it all added to the atmosphere for us anyway.
Tell us about the kind of sort of routine of making this record out in Amsterdam, because you had a bit of a one, didn't you?
We did have a routine. We were up quite early. We sort of started midday. We could walk to work from where the studio was. It's right in the centre of town. And it was kind of nice. I think it was just that nice feeling. We all sort of meet outside the hotel and walk to work together, and we'd only work up to about 7 or 8 o'clock. So it was a bit of a sort of 9 to 5 for us, and then we'd come out and we'd have our little local, we'd go and have a few drinks in, and the rest of the night would just become a blur.
And get into trouble.
But it was just fun, you know. It was there's a good camaraderie amongst everyone there.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about, you know, who's actually playing on this album as well. Can we sort of, you know, run through that? Mr. White there on the drums, as always.
Stevie White.
I mean, that's a long ongoing sort of relationship, isn't it? I mean, he first started playing...
Over 20 years now.
He first started playing with you when he was, what, 17 years of age?
17 yeah. It was 83 or 4, whatever it was, so over 20 years.
Why does that relationship, why has that sort of, like, worked, you know, so well for such a long time?
Well, we've had ups and downs. I mean, we've had our falling outs and stuff, and especially in the council days. But I think for both of us, it's just we just work really well together. We complement each other, you know, and we've got a certain telepathy. I don't know what expression you use really, but we just kind of, you know,
an intuitive thing.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we don't really spend too much time talking about things really. We both know what it should be, and I would say that probably applies to Steve Craddock and Damon Minchella as well, who again have been playing for 10 years with me, you know. So
that's the nucleus of the group.
It's the nucleus as well.
The nucleus of the group as well, and they do it so well. Let's talk about you know, some of the other people that you know, that came over and played on the album.
Well, that was the mainstay of the band on the album, and then we had some guests coming in. We used some fantastic Dutch brass players out there who were from a band called New Cool Collective.
It's a good name.
And we had some Dutch string players who were from there, you know, Philharmonic Orchestra or whatever they may have been, and great arrangements again. And who else? And then over here we added Eliza Carthy on fiddle on a couple of tracks. What's her history? She's a new name to me. She's made a few records now. She's a really great folk artist, British folk artist. I mean, that's I guess what you'd label it as. She's the daughter of Martin Carthy, so she's got that whole kind of, you know, lineage as well from her folks and stuff. But it's you know, she's great. And I kind of knew her. I got to know she did a version of Wildwood a few years back, 4 or 5 years ago, on one of her albums. So that's kind of the first time I heard of her. That she sang as well. That she sang as well, yeah. What was that like? It was good. Not as good as the original, but it was good. Yeah. But she was great. And who else? Danny Thompson, the famous double bass player. He played on a couple of tracks. That was great as well. He was a very, very interesting, funny man as well. And singers? The Stands sang backing vocals on one track, a band called The Stands. And we added some girl vocalists, Sam Brown, Claudia Fontaine and Carly Anderson, which was great combination. And there's probably a couple other people I've forgotten. So, you know, when you're actually sort of, you know, you're over there and you go into the studio as well, is it a case of the band sort of, you know, setting up, you know, all sort of surrounding each other, yeah, and just kind of playing it as live and then adding bits and pieces? It's all totally live. I mean, we might redo bits and pieces, but very rarely, and I would say most of the takes are like within the first 3 takes or something, and if we don't get it within that, we'll move on and come back to it at a later date. For us, it works because with a performance, which is what we're trying to capture, you know what you've got. It's not a question of, well, we can tart this up later on. It's like, bang, it's either there, and we know we've got the performance or the take, or we haven't, and we have to go back and do it, you know. So in lots of ways, it makes things much easier. And a lot of recording these days is so sort of processed, where people would just do a little bit at a time. They have a click track, and they do the drums to it, and they do this, and like building blocks, you know. Which, like I said, if it works for people, but to me, it just sounds fucking naff, really. I can hear the difference, you know. And you can hear when there's a performance on a record and when there isn't. But I do think we've got a really good sound on this record. And I think the engineer we worked with, a guy called Yuri, who was the Dutch engineer, was really special. And Stan's co-produced this with you, who you've kind of worked with in the past. I mean, what kind of sort of makes that relationship work? It definitely worked on this record. I mean, he had good ideas. I mean, he's an engineer himself as well, so he's kind of listened to the sound as well. But he had good ideas, and it's it's personality sometimes, you know. Sometimes you need someone to kind of keep you buoyant and keep you up as well, and he's very good at doing that. I mean, you mentioned, which is a mark of a good producer, I think, as well, to draw the best out of people. I mean, you mentioned a little bit earlier about trying different songs 3 times, and if it didn't work, and then upwards and onwards. I mean, just out of interest, were there any sort of songs that you did try for this album that didn't sort of make the cut in the end? The only one we did was "Give Me Shelter," the Stones tune. What did that sound like? Why didn't really? Right, that's what. Was it that bad? It was pretty awful, yeah. But we were trying to do it more in that sort of Mary Clayton style, that version. I don't know if you heard that at all. We were kind of trying to do that sort of thing, but it didn't work anyway. But otherwise, no, everything else we recorded, we've used really, whether it's on the album or B-sides,
I mean, I'm interested to sort of know
we
this.
ended up with like sort of 18 tracks when we come away from Ireland, so when we could have just kept on going, you know, so we had to sort of draw the line somewhere, really.
I mean, you spoke a little bit earlier on about, you know, what was it about, you know, specific songs that sort of, you know, excites you and, you know, makes you want to sort of put your own spin on it. I mean, have you had any sort of feedback from any of the writers to the songs that you have covered?
I think I got a, yeah, it's all right, from Noel, which was quite good. It's quite an ecstatic sort of review coming from him, really. So I think he liked it. But otherwise, no, I haven't. I'll be interested to see what people think, you know. I mean, obviously, I'd hope they sort of see it as a, you know, complimentary way, you know.
Should we go through the should we go through the track
not?
listing and you know, just, I mean, if you can kind of sort of, you know, tell us you know, how you first heard that song and what was it that, you know, kind of inspired you to want to cover it as well. The first one, the first track that opens the album is an old Northern Soul stomper, Nolan Porter's "If I Could Only Be Sure." Right. I'd never heard this before. How would you have heard this one? I
heard it through from our mate Paolo, who went over and did some dodgy mod rally in Italy, but he came back raving about this song, so hey, got to hear it. So we tracked it down anyway. And
would it have been one straight from the off when you first heard it and you first fell in love with it that you thought I could do a version of that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I was thinking about doing a covers album around that time I heard it, but it was kind of sort of logged up there. Yeah, it's just got a nice. I mean, it's got the soul thing, but it's got a kind of moodiness about it as well, you know, and something in the melody or whatever. But and I think it was nice to. It's quite obscure as well. I mean, I think only probably sort of, you know, soul heads would sort of know it, or Northern Soul people won't know it. But
what made it right as far as you know, the first track on the album, because it's quite up tempo and a good opener.
Yeah, I mean, we tried all different combinations of track listing like we always do when we finish an album. You know, it's just whatever we think sounds best. You know, get a fag, man.
Yeah.
Cut.
Rolls Royce Wishing on a Star, which I guess is a song that might sort of, you know, surprise some people, that choice. Yeah. Tell us the story, you know, behind that one.
That was another one, which I've probably said earlier, but just hear it on the radio. And one of those situations where a song which you know and you've heard for like years and years, you know, but you've never really sort of sat down, and I've never sat down and really sort of listened to properly, you know. Just
took on a different context.
It did, yeah. And I just like the... sort of bring the kind of moodiness out of it a little bit, really, which I think, you know, that's probably my favourite track on the album, actually. I thought we've done a really good job with that. I'll be interested to know what the writer thought of that.
Don't Make Promises, Tim Harding. Is he a favourite?
Yeah, I like a lot of his stuff. And it's an artist I got into through the Small Faces. He did a couple of his songs, did Red Balloon and Fire a Carpenter. And yeah, I like his early stuff especially, I thought was great. And
what was it about that song, Don't Make Promises, that appealed?
I don't know, I just thought, I mean, probably I'm going to say the same thing to all these, you know, with the same answer, they're just good songs.
Gil Scott Heron's The Bottle is next. I mean, it's such a definitive track, that. I mean, you know, the original version. But I mean, were you kind of sort of wary of you know, doing that one? I mean, how do you sort of improve upon... I wasn't wary about doing any
of them, to be honest with you, because I mean, hopefully we've done them justice. You know, I mean, I always think the original's the greatest, is still the greatest, as the old saying goes, and it's always true, you know. So we've just tried to, haven't tried to improve any of the songs, we've just tried to do something different with all of them, you know, trying to reinterpret them in some way. And with The Bottle, I mean, like you said, it's very, you know, such a classic track. So I suppose we just sped it up and made it a bit more aggressive, really, you know.
Let's talk about Black is the Colour, a traditional song. How would you have first heard that one?
I was on the piss up in Scotland after a gig, and there was a wedding party there. It was a mixture of Scottish people and people from Northern Ireland.
So you fitted in great.
So, yeah, fucking... And we all had a nice little drink, and there was a piano there, and we all was just singing songs around the piano, and then they all started singing this song, you know, which they obviously all knew. And it was just the most amazing sound, all these voices joining on the chorus. And so that's how I learnt the song anyway. And they very kindly wrote the words down as well, so I kind of sort of, you know, after that found the music for it. Actually, I heard Christy Moore's version, which is great as well. She's a great Irish singer. And Nina Simone did a version as well. I mean, I kind of sort of found that afterwards, you know. But it's an old traditional Scottish song. It's not Irish, in fact, but Christy Moore's version is fantastic, yeah.
And how would you sort of describe your treatment of it? What have you tried to do with it?
Well, we try, you know, we kind of sort of kept the sort of folk element in it, and just try to make it a bit more kind of, I don't know, ethereal, atmospheric. You know, it's got these kind of wispy, moog sounds in the background and stuff, and I don't know, yeah, kind of bring the ethereal sort of side of it out. I don't know.
I guess Close to You, which of course is a song that originally we'd know through the Carpenters version, written by Bacharach and David. I guess that's going to sort of, you know, surprise a few people.
It will do, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, tell us about, you know, about that song and, you know, what sort of struck you about it. I mean, of course, you know, it's a song that we would have heard millions of times on the radio growing up. Yeah,
well, I always turned the radio off when it came on myself. But it's, I mean, I suppose because that cheesy Carpenter version, you know. But it's Bacharach David's song, which is quality, obviously. And it just, well, I think I've already answered this earlier on, but it's just come about with me and my children sort of take the piss out of the song. We were just kind of singing it one day and sort of just messing about with it. But, and I don't know, I just thought we could do something else with it, really. Try to sort of bring a kind of, make almost like a sort of Chicago soul, courtesy type arrangement on it. And
what went wrong?
No, I don't know. I like it. I think it's. I love the brass on it on our version. I mean, it's quite a sort of. It's a bit kitschy sounding sort of tune, I suppose. But yeah, I like it. I think we've done justice to it.
Gordon Lightfoot's Early Morning Rain is next. Yeah, I don't know too much about him other than that a singer-songwriter from the 1970s. How would you have first heard this song? I first heard it.
The first time I heard that song was Bob Dylan's version on an album called Self Portrait, which I think was about sort of 1970, something like that. Probably the first Dylan album I bought, actually, around that time. And so that's the first time I heard that song, and I've heard the original as well since then. But I think only after we've cut this, I think I heard the original. But it's a lovely song, and I have to say, was it my place or not, but I like our version probably better than the original. I think because I changed the chords on it.
Gordon's version or Dylan's?
No, I like our version best.
Right.
I think I've changed the chord sequence on it. I think kind of gives it a different kind of flavour to the melody, I think. I shouldn't really say that.
And I think, you know, I mean, I'd never heard that song before, and, you know, it's the first time I've heard it on your album, and it's one of my favourites on the album as well, which, you know, again, sort of goes back to that thing about, you know, sending you off on a journey. Is it worth my while checking out the Gordon Lightfoot version? No, just stick with this one. Thinking of You, Sister Sledge is next. You must have skidded around a few dance floors to that one back in the day.
That's another one that was a real favourite of mine. It has been since the time it came out, which was, what was it, 82-ish, 83?
82, 83, yeah.
Which is a fantastic song, you know, but again, you know, it's kind of, there's no way you can better that, especially the way the Chic Boys play on it. The guitar and bass is just, you know, it's just sublime, isn't it? So we just try to try and do something different with it, and just made it acoustic, and I suppose I feel like a lot of my songs sort of bring out the kind of slightly dark and moodier side of a tune, which hopefully we've done it justice, and it's got great strings on it, beautiful string arrangement, which was done by this Dutch fellow over there.
They wrote some great songs, Rodgers and Edwards, didn't they? I mean, songs that, you know, have really sort of stood the test of time as well. Yeah. And the next one is an old Gallagher song, One Way Road. This was a B-side, a bonus track, wasn't it, on a single?
I've got it on a single, yes. I think it was, I don't know what the single was. It was around the time of the third or fourth album, I'm not sure. But I always liked that song, and I always could hear I could always hear this slight sort of soul-y sort of thing to it, you know, the I wanna get that kind of thing in the melody. And we've played it a few times with Noel. In fact, we've done a couple of charity gigs in the past, and we've done that with him. And he did it with my band as well a few years ago. We did the Albert Hall. But and I just always liked that song. I could always hear a different quality in it, you know.
And he gave it a thumbs up.
Well, as much as he ever does, you know what I mean.
It's all right.
It's all right.
Aaron Neville, Hercules, an Alan Toussaint song. Is this an old favourite from years ago? Yeah, and we used to do this, in fact, about 10, 12 years ago in the set. And, I mean, again, he's another fantastic writer and, you know, brilliant musician and producer. And the whole New Orleans scene is just fantastic, really. So much great music coming out of there. And I really like the lyrics as well, great lyrics in it. Another sort of great sort of social commentary thing, you know, which I think, again, stood the test of time with that song. Dylan's All Along the Watchtower is the penultimate track on the album, which of course we all know Hendrix's version.
Second to last one as well.
That's right, that as well. That's very, very true, that. I mean, you know, but it's a song that's been covered, you know, many, many times over the years as well.
Well, I mean, the Hendrix thing's kind of, you know, that's what everyone kind of immediately thinks of, don't they? You know, it's kind of Hendrix's version overshadows Bob's version as well, doesn't it?
What was it about the song that appealed to you, though?
Someone handed me a set of lyrics, you know. I was in America and some female fan just gave me this set of the lyrics to it. I don't know, I have no idea why. She was sent to do it. But she'd give me this set of lyrics and I just started playing it. It was just, you know, so a lot of things were kind of happened around. It's like I was saying about Black is the Colour, it was just kind of, you know, spontaneous sort of choices, really. But it's got 3 chords that appeal to me as well, and it's got that kind of otherworldly quality to it as well. I mean, no one really knows what that song's about, you know, but it's got a kind of that sort of...
What's your take on it as far as what it's about?
I always thought it was like a bit kind of sort of Hamlet or something, or maybe think a kind of some sort of medieval thing, I don't know really. It was nice on this album, you know, because I didn't have to sit around analysing the lyrics like I normally do with my own stuff. I'm wondering if I'm doing saying the right thing, or if I've made it, you know, clear enough. Or it was nice, just not, you know, I'm not really bothered what the song's about. I'm just singing it, you know. It was quite liberating, really. It's something I don't think you could do on your own stuff so much because you kind of, you know, you're just too self-conscious when you're writing something, you know.
Honing all the time and going back.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Well, the album closes with Neil Young's Songbirds. He's a big favourite of yours, isn't he?
Yeah, he is, yeah.
What is it about him that you admire so much?
Well, I mean, I think he's a great songwriter, and I love the simplicity of his stuff, you know. I think it's great. It's great when you hear sort of clever, complicated things, but it's also great when you hear someone can still get a fantastic song out of 3 or 4 chords, you know, the most basic chords, and still turn into something original. And I think he's really good at doing that. I think that's an art in itself, you know.
And what about this song in particular, Paul, Birds? What was it about that?
I've always thought it was a really, really lovely song, and I know we used to sort of, me and Steve Craddock used to sort of play it at sound checks, you know, we sort of mess about with it, and I could hear the kind of, to my ears, I could hear the kind of gospel-y sort of like churchy thing in it as well, you know. So we kind of sort of tried to bring that out, and with the girl singers and stuff on it as well. But,
what do you think this album says about how your taste has evolved over the years? I mean, are there sort of songs on there that, you know, you would have hated as a teenager?
Well, I wouldn't have done close to you, that's for sure, you know. But and even now, I can't say it's not like I've turned around and thought it's the most fantastic of songs I've ever heard. But it wasn't. I was saying the songs weren't chosen for that. I was trying to make an album, you know. It wasn't just, you know, if I'd have chosen all the songs that are the closest to my heart, it would have been all the obvious sort of things, or what things that people expect. But it was kind of, I wanted to be more, had to be more objective making this than that, you know.
What do you hope the listener comes away with after hearing it? I mean, do you think there's a sort of thread, though, running through the songs as far as, you know, the selection is concerned?
I think it's just a bunch of songs and, you know, hopefully people like them, and if they don't, they don't, you know. It hasn't got any concept or theme to it, I don't think.
You said that, you know, doing this album and covering these other people's songs took the pressure off you as far as, you know, being a songwriter yourself. Right. Have you sort of started thinking or accumulating songs for you know, the next album?
I've sort of got bits and pieces, but then I always do that. I just sort of stockpile little bits, you know. There can be like a couplet, or it can be a title, or a few chords, or a bit of melody. And it's only when I really sit down and seriously think, right, I'm going to put this into some sort of shape, you know. And at the moment, I just can't be asked doing that, you know. But it's like I was saying to you before, it's not like I'm sort of pulling my hair out about it. I'm really quite happy about it, you know. I sort of feel it will kind of come back to me when it needs to, or when it, you know, it will find me.
And what about the future as well? I mean, you know, you said that this idea to do a covers album you've had kicking around for, you know, 10 or 12 years.
Right.
I mean, what about sort of, you know, other things like this? You know, something off the sort of beaten track. I mean, what a duets album?
Ideas, you know, I mean, I've done the acoustic thing.
You've done the acoustic, you've done the covers, duets. The duets album, would that be something of interest?
It wouldn't really particularly. I think the duets are so hit and miss, and all the things that, you know, you could put a list down on, and it sounds okay on paper, but in reality, I don't know. It's very hard to make those things work. And the way that I work is much more spontaneous than that. You know, things either work at the time or they don't really. But I would like to make it. I like to think I've got another great album in me somewhere. So kind of, if I've got any plans for the future, it'll be next year to make another album. When
you do look back at your career as well, you know, what are the albums that you know, you're most proud of? I mean, you know, starting with The Jam.
Well, Sound Effects for me. I thought that was a great album. And I thought we still had the Jam sound, but we were pushing it a bit there. I thought pushing the boundaries a little bit.
Style Council?
Style Council, our favourite shop, I thought was a great album. I think some great songs on that and great playing. And from the solo years, well, I suppose like well, Stanley Road for me still stands out. I thought that was another great album.
Any for any particular reason?
I just thought every track, you know, there's very rarely that I think I've got every track, as a writer, I've got every track right, you know. And I felt that on Stanley Road. I mean, aside from that, I mean, it was very successful, but outside of that, as a personal thing, I thought every track was strong and stood up on its own, you know, which is rare.
Well, I know you've got some rehearsing to do. You were working on a song before I sat down and joined you at the piano, Whispering Grass. Have you got to sing it as well?
All together.